In the long, secret history of the Cold War, few operations have captured the public imagination like Operation Ivy Bells, the audacious 1970s wiretap of a Soviet undersea communications cable deep within the hostile waters of the Sea of Okhotsk. It was a story of unparalleled daring, a technological marvel deployed in a realm of crushing pressure and absolute darkness. This popular narrative, however, fundamentally misunderstands the strategic picture. Ivy Bells, while a brilliant tactical success, was not a standalone operation. It was a single, notable episode in a much grander, decades-long, and far more dangerous clandestine war. The true story, the umbrella program that enabled Ivy Bells and dozens of other high-risk missions, was codenamed Project HOLYSTONE. Project HOLYSTONE, along with related codenames like Pinnacle and Ballard, was the designation for the U.S. Navy's Special Naval Collection Program. Authorized during the Eisenhower administration and operating for decades, its strategic purpose was brutally simple: to leverage the unprecedented stealth and endurance of nuclear-powered submarines to conduct a vast range of intelligence-gathering missions deep inside Soviet territorial waters. These submarines, operating with impunity in areas where satellites were blind and aircraft would be instantly destroyed, acted as the unseen eyes and ears of the U.S. intelligence community. This was an elite, interagency effort of the highest national priority. While run by the U.S. Navy, the Holystone missions operated under the quiet scrutiny of the White House's Covert Action Oversight Body, the 40 Committee. The intelligence collected, the take, was fed directly to the National Security Agency and the Central Intelligence Agency. But at its core, the story of Holystone is not of policy, but of revolutionary engineering. Its true protagonists were not the spies, but the machines they built. A small, secretive fleet of radically modified nuclear-powered submarines purpose-built to look, listen, and touch the Soviet Union in its own backyard. This is the story of those submarines, an engineering saga that begins not with a grand design, but with a strategic white elephant that, through sheer necessity, became the Navy's most potent secret weapon, the USS Halibut. The Holystone program began not with a purpose-built design, but with a fortunate accident of technological obsolescence. The USS Halibut, SS-N-587, was commissioned on January 4, 1960. She was a one-of-a-kind, nuclear-powered guided missile submarine, or SSGN, the first in the world designed from the keel up for a new mission: nuclear deterrence. Halibut's entire design was centered on a massive, 22-foot-wide internal hangar on her foredeck, engineered to house and launch 5 Regulus nuclear cruise missiles. Her problem was one of catastrophic timing. By the time she entered service, the entire Regulus missile program, a clumsy system that required the submarine to surface, deploy the missile, and guide it from a vulnerable position, was already obsolete. The new, solid-fueled Polaris ballistic missile, which could be fired from deep underwater, had rendered the Halibut a costly strategic dead end. After just 4 years of deterrent patrols, the Regulus missile program was canceled. The Navy was left with a brand-new, expensive, and now completely useless nuclear submarine. In 1965, the Navy's Intelligence and Special Projects divisions, desperate for a platform to conduct deep ocean espionage, saw a unique opportunity in Halibut's unconventional and failed design. She was pulled into dry dock at Pearl Harbor for a massive, top-secret overhaul. This 16-month refit transformed her from a useless missile boat into the most advanced underwater intelligence-gathering platform in the world. combining three distinct and revolutionary engineering capabilities into one vessel. First, the Batcave, the brain. The Halibut's greatest liability, its massive internal missile hangar, became its single greatest asset. This cavernous, two-deck high space was gutted and converted into a dedicated, sealed intelligence processing center. As a former crew member said, "We called it the Batcave. It was a cold, dark, cavernous place stuffed into the hull, packed with spooks and technicians. Most of us were forbidden to ever enter it. We signed papers to never divulge what the boat did, and were expected to take those memories to the grave." The Batcave housed a sophisticated mainframe computer, advanced signal processing gear, and the control stations for the submarine's new sensory equipment. Second, the fish ROVs, the eyes. To give the Batcave its eyes, engineers utilized a newly installed moon pool or well that passed through the hull. This allowed the submarine to deploy advanced remotely operated vehicles or ROVs, nicknamed fish. These were not free-swimming drones. They were heavy, towed sensor bodies tethered to the Halibut by long armored cables. While the 5,000-ton submarine hovered just off the ocean floor, operators in the Batcave would fly the fish, using them to scan the seabed with a suite of high-resolution cameras, powerful strobe lights, and side-scan sonar. To support this, Halibut was retrofitted with bow and stern thrusters for precise maneuvering and heavy anchors and skids, allowing it to land silently on the ocean floor. The final modification was the most secretive, and it provided the program's hands. A large cylindrical structure was added over the submarine's aft escape trunk. This addition was part of an ingenious deception operation. The Navy publicly stated that this structure was a DSRV simulator. Authoritative journals like Jane's Fighting Ships reported that Halibut was a mother submarine for testing the Navy's new deep submergence rescue vehicle program. This was an elaborate, high-level lie. The cylinder was in fact a sophisticated saturation diving lockout chamber. This system, secretly developed by the Navy's Sea Lab program, allowed a team of elite Navy saturation divers to live for days or weeks at the same ambient pressure as the deep ocean. They could now exit and re-enter the submarine directly onto the seafloor, giving the Halibut the unprecedented, clandestine ability to physically manipulate objects and install complex equipment deep inside enemy territory. With this refit, the Halibut was a unique kitbash of espionage technology. It was a single, stealthy platform that combined a brain, the Batcave, deep-sea eyes, the fish ROVs, and covert hands, the saturation divers. This triple capability unlocked an entirely new world of clandestine missions, defining the scope of Project HOLYSTONE for decades to come. The Halibut's new capabilities were immediately put to use in a series of high-stakes missions far beyond the scope of simple cable tapping. These operations, often referred to by the innocuous euphemism underwater engineering, fell into several main categories, each pushing the boundaries of engineering and international law. In March 1968, the Soviet Gulf II-class ballistic missile submarine K-129 vanished without a trace in the remote North Pacific. After a massive 2-month Soviet search effort failed to find the wreck, the Halibut was dispatched on a top-secret Holystone mission, codenamed Velvet Fist. This would be the first major test of its revolutionary Batcave and Fish ROV system. The K-129 lay at an abysmal depth of 16,500 feet, more than 3 miles down, in a realm of total darkness and crushing pressure. After just 3 weeks of meticulously mowing the lawn, operators in the Batcave Flying the Fish ROV located the wreck. Over the following weeks, they painstakingly photographed the entire debris field, taking tens of thousands of high-resolution photos, enough to map every fragment of the wreck. The wreckage was a scene of severe trauma. The retrieved forward section was a 40-foot black cylinder, its hull rippled and twisted, giving the appearance of a reptile shedding its skin. Water and ocean floor slurry drained from it, carrying the pungent smell of a low-tide reef. This Holystone mission was the direct critical enabler for one of the CIA's most famous and expensive operations, Project AZORIAN. The precise location and detailed photographs provided by Halibut gave the CIA the intelligence and, more importantly, the engineering confidence needed to design and build the Hughes Glomar Explorer in a daring attempt to physically lift the Soviet submarine from the ocean floor. This demonstrates the central interagency role of the Navy's Special Naval Collection Program. Halibut's success with the K-129 proved the value of trash collection. The program's managers now devised a brilliant cover story to disguise their other operations, like Ivy Bells, which they required to be in Soviet naval ranges. They would pretend to be there simply to recover debris from Soviet missile tests. And in a classic case of hiding in plain sight, this cover story was also a very real and very critical Holystone mission. Holystone submarines, including the Halibut and its successors like the USS Parche, would penetrate Soviet missile test ranges in the Sea of Okhotsk and Barents Sea. After a test firing of the new SS-N-12 Sandbox anti-ship missile, a deadly carrier killer, the submarine would settle silently on the seabed. The saturation divers would exit the lockout chamber, and in the crushing darkness, hundreds of feet down, they would physically install a massive induction tap recording pod onto the cable. This tap provided unencrypted high-level Soviet communications for nearly a decade. But Ivy Bells was not the only tap. To demonstrate the scale and audacity of the program, Holystone submarines, particularly the USS Parche, were later sent to conduct far more dangerous cable detection and tapping operations in the Barents Sea and near the North Pole. This was the heavily patrolled, ice-choked front yard of the powerful Soviet Northern Fleet, an operating environment infinitely more hostile than the remote Sea of Okhotsk. The Halibut had proven the concept, but the Navy needed a perfected, purpose-built successor to carry on this clandestine war.
The Halibut was an ad hoc, kit-bashed marvel. Its success proved the Holystone concept, but its design was a compromise, an obsolete missile boat retrofitted for a mission it was never intended for. Its external DSRV ruse was a clever but ultimately exposed liability. The Navy moved to create a perfected, purpose-built successor, a submarine that would institutionalize the Halibut's experimental capabilities into a silent, integrated, and permanent weapons system. They selected a standard Sturgeon-class attack submarine, the USS Parche, SSN-683. From 1987 to 1991, Parche underwent an extensive and top-secret overhaul at Mare Island Shipyard. This refit fundamentally transformed the submarine by inserting a massive, roughly 100-foot hull extension, or plug, into its hull just forward of the sail. This plug, which increased the submarine's length to over 400 feet, was the 20th-century bat cave made manifest, a rolling, deep-diving, clandestine operations center. While its precise contents remain highly classified, the 100-foot extension's design reveals its function, representing a second generation of Holystone engineering. Internal diver system and moon pool. The most significant upgrade was moving the entire saturation diving system inside the pressure hull. The Halibut's telltale external DSRV cylinder was eliminated. The Parche's plug contained a sophisticated, multi-part hyperbaric chamber for a team of saturation divers. This chamber connected to a moon pool a large, floodable trunk with doors that opened through the bottom of the submarine's hull. This allowed divers, ROVs, and sensors to be deployed and recovered from the belly of the sub, making the operation virtually undetectable from the surface or by satellite. Advanced SINT and ROV hangar. The plug's flat top, known as the caboose, housed an extensive array of signals intelligence collecting antennas for passive listening. The massive internal volume contained a next-generation aquarium, or hangar, for deploying advanced tethered ROVs and sonar fish, as well as a remote grapple for trash collection missions. Maneuvering and hardening. The Parche was given a new suite of powerful thrusters for precise maneuvering, hovering, and parking on the ocean floor. Its sail was reinforced and its diving planes made to pivot vertically, allowing it to operate and surface through polar ice. The USS Parche is, by a wide margin, one of the most decorated vessels in the history of the U.S. Navy. Upon its decommissioning in 2004, its honors were staggering and, on their face, completely contradictory. The Parche's final award record includes numerous Presidential Unit citations and Navy Unit commendations, making it one of the most decorated submarines in U.S. history. This staggering list of top-tier unit awards presents a profound public contradiction. A Presidential Unit citation is the highest honor a unit can receive, awarded for extraordinary heroism in action against an armed enemy. Yet in its entire 30-year career, the USS Parche never fired a single shot in anger. This contradiction is the smoking gun that proves the extent, the risk, and the success of Project Holystone. The only possible explanation for this unparalleled awards record is that these citations are the public, unclassified recognition for decades of successful, high-risk classified operations. Each one of those Presidential Unit citations, awarded in secret by the President, represents a battle won in the Cold War's clandestine wet war, a completed harbor penetration, a vital cable tap in the Barents Sea, or a game-changing trash collection mission that handed American engineers the enemy's secrets. Project Holystone was not a program of one or two special submarines. It was a dedicated, evolving fleet. The capabilities pioneered by the Halibut were the first generation of a new form of warfare. This success triggered a quiet, parallel arms race within the U.S. Navy, an engineering evolution to refine and perfect the ultimate spy machine. This evolution is clear. Generation 1, the ad hoc pioneer. The USS Halibut, this was a kit-bashed marvel, a compromised design brilliantly repurposed. Its core features, the external missile hangar, Batcave, and the external DSRV diver lockout were ingenious, but they were also visible, add-on appendages that made the submarine aerodynamically noisy and unique, a potential liability. Generation 2, the refinement. The USS Seawolf. Recognizing the limitations of Halibut, the Navy took another one-of-a-kind experimental submarine, Seawolf, and refitted it. They lengthened its hull forward of the sail, moving the mission space inside the pressure hull. This refinement eliminated the Halibut's obvious external structures, making the submarine far stealthier and more aerodynamic. Generation 3, the perfection. The USS Parche. This was the apex. Instead of modifying an existing space, engineers inserted a purpose-built, roughly 100-foot mission plug. This section was designed from the keel up to house a fully integrated internal moon pool, a multi-deck diver saturation system, and a next-generation Batcave. This small, secretive squadron, along with other specially modified Sturgeon-class submarines like the USS Richard B. Russell, formed the classified core of the Special Naval Collection Program for over 30 years. They were the unseen, vital assets on the front lines of the Cold War. But this vital program, operating in total secrecy, was about to be blown wide. The clandestine world of the Holystone submarines was rocked by two separate, devastating compromises. The second, and more famous, came in 1980, when disgraced NSA analyst Ronald Pelton walked into the Soviet embassy and sold the secret of Operation Ivy Bells. For $35,000, this was a catastrophic breach of operational security. But a far earlier and arguably more sweeping compromise had already occurred. Years before Pelton's treason, the entire Holystone program's existence was exposed to the public, laying bare its most sensitive methods. The source was not a traitor, but one of America's most renowned investigative journalists, Seymour Hersh of the New York Times. In a series of explosive articles published in 1974 and 1975, Hersh, citing high-level intelligence sources, revealed what was supposed to be America's most guarded secret. Hersh revealed the existence of a secret submarine espionage program, codenamed Holystone. He reported that U.S. nuclear submarines were conducting covert missions inside the 3-mile Soviet territorial limit, and that there had been collisions with Soviet submarines during these high-risk operations. Hersh even detailed specific intelligence coups, including the Halibut's role in the K-129 recovery, and most audaciously, a harbor penetration mission where a U.S. sub photographed the underside of a Soviet submarine while it was tied to a pier in Vladivostok harbor. The reaction from the White House and the Pentagon was explosive. Officials were furious, publicly claiming the leaks had, quote, caused the Russians to improve offshore security and had catastrophically compromised the entire program. Declassified memos from May 1975 detail the panic which soon turned to resolve. A memo from White House official Dick Cheney to Chief of Staff Rumsfeld describes high-level discussions with the Attorney General about the wisdom and/or feasibility of any legal action against the New York Times. The official outrage, however, masked a far more telling reality. Buried deep within that same Cheney memo is the smoking gun that proves the program's ultimate importance. Despite the catastrophic public leak and the official fury, the memo dutifully notes the Navy's internal position, as relayed by the Department of Defense counsel. The memo says the Navy believes operations should continue, continue. The intelligence gathered by Project Holystone was simply too vital to national security to give up. The program was deemed worth the risk even in the face of its total public compromise. The hunt would go on.
The Holystone mission did not end with the Cold War, the retirement of the Halibut, or the decommissioning of the Parche. The silent service continued to evolve, culminating in the ultimate expression of the engineering philosophy pioneered a generation before. On October 19, 2004, the USS Parche was decommissioned in a quiet ceremony, its crew celebrated for a career shrouded in secrecy. Just 4 months later, on February 19, 2005, the Navy commissioned its direct, purpose-built successor, a submarine that would inherit the Holystone legacy. This was the USS Jimmy Carter, SS-N-12. The Carter is the third and final submarine of the hyper-advanced, deep-diving Seawolf class. Like Parche, she was extensively and secretly modified during construction. A massive contract extension was awarded to insert a roughly 100-foot hull extension into her midsection, a feature officially designated the Multi-Mission Platform, MMP. This multi-mission platform is the fourth-generation evolution of the Halibut's original Batcave and the Parche's plug. It is a massive, reconfigurable underwater hangar and operations center. It features a large ocean interface, or moon pool, allowing for the launch and recovery of next-generation ROVs, unmanned undersea vehicles, and special operations craft. It includes a reconfigurable cargo area and command center suite, and can berth a large contingent of special operations forces such as Navy SEALs. The USS Jimmy Carter is explicitly designed to carry on the look, listen, and touch missions of its predecessors: underwater reconnaissance, surveillance, seabed warfare, and, almost certainly, tapping the modern fiber optic cables that carry the world's data. Like Parche, its missions remain highly classified. However, in 2013, the Carter was awarded its own Presidential Unit Citation for a mysterious, high-risk mission, Mission 7, proving that the high-stakes wet war pioneered by Project HOLYSTONE continues to this day. In a final, fitting historical irony, the USS Jimmy Carter is named for the 39th U.S. President, the only president to have been a qualified submariner. His first naval assignment in the 1950s was as an officer on the pre-commissioning crew of the USS Seawolf SS-N-12 one of the original Holystone fleet submarines. The legacy is direct, unbroken, and complete. The popular history of the Cold War is written by ICBMs, spy planes, and satellites. But the true, silent history was written in the deep ocean. Operation Ivy Bells was a single daring chapter in this history, but Project HOLYSTONE was the entire book. It was a decades-long clandestine war fought by a handful of men in specially engineered vessels, pushing the limits of technology and human endurance. The engineering evolved at a relentless pace, from the kit-bashed Halibut, a repurposed failure that became an intelligence pioneer, to the purpose-built Parche, a roughly 100-foot-long internal operating center, to the modern Jimmy Carter and its multi-mission platform. This evolution was a direct response to the lessons learned. The DSRV ruse on Halibut was clever, but the internal moon pool on Parche was invisible. The ROVs of the 1970s were revolutionary, but the UUVs of today are autonomous. Ultimately, Project HOLYSTONE redefined naval warfare. It proved that a nuclear submarine could be more than just a hunter-killer. It could be an intelligence platform, a recovery vessel, a sabotage tool, and a mothership for covert operations, all while remaining perfectly invisible. The staggering list of Presidential Unit Citations awarded to the Parche for a ship that never fired a shot is the silent, public testament to this secret war. It confirms that the most critical battles of the Cold War were not fought with torpedoes, but were won with a quiet photograph of a propeller, a recovered fragment of a missile, and a secret tap on a cable, all executed by the unseen phantoms of Project HOLYSTONE.